Got my pink cup because we're making a pink dress. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Teal Garcia, and on this channel we talk about everything related to photography, and everything includes now I make dresses. So you might not feel like that fits into this category, but I am a big believer in having a client closet. So part of my 2021 goals were to create some things for my client closet, some gowns that I've made. So I wanted to kind of beef it up, make it very special pieces that you don't see everyone else having. So that's kind of where we've landed, and I'm going to do one dress a month all of 2021. So this will be my second dress. This will be my dress for February, even though the other video you saw was February. But this is the one that people have been waiting on. This is the one that I am going to do a full tutorial with measurements, cut here, sew here, for like a basic boho-y dress. I did a gown the end of 2020, and it got like a lot of views, it got a lot of comments, I got a lot of messages about like, how do you actually do that? Like, what are the measurements? What are this? What are that? And I have been promising that I would do a video because I don't know, I don't really do a lot of like tutorials when I do these videos, and I think it's mostly because like, honestly, I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. I kind of just like wing it, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, so trying to talk my way through what I'm doing isn't usually doable. So I do like, you know, kind of tell you what I'm doing, and I will continue to in the videos, but this is the one. This is the one where we are going to make a dress together. I'm going to tell you exactly where to cut and sew and stitch and everything. Let's get started because I know you've been waiting for it. All right, this is what you're going to need for a dress. You are going to need 5 to 6 yards of fabric. This is what I've chosen. I realized that I don't really have anything like pretty and pink for maybe like a pregnant mama who's having a girl and wants to wear pink. I didn't have anything, so we're gonna go with that. It's very pretty. It's just kind of like, it's actually kind of a stiff lace. I also wanted just something super easy to work with for this. A stiffer material that doesn't really fray is always easier to work with, so maybe your first one, pick something simple. It's just like really good, it's pretty. I think it'll photograph really well, but yeah. So I say 5 to 6 yards because, so I use 6 yards when I, like I have 6 yards, but you can use 5. And the reason I say 5 or 6 is because sometimes price is a thing, and shaving off like 1 extra yard isn't gonna like make or break the dress. I just like a super big flowy skirt. So you can follow the same directions with 5 yards instead of 6. But again, if it just is gonna kind of affect your skirt is really all it's going to. So we're gonna use 1 yard for sleeves and 5 yards for the skirt. But again, if you want to only buy 5 yards, I've bought some really expensive fabric before, so just like shaving off that last yard isn't gonna like kill the dress. So again, make your choices wisely. You will need thread, you will need scissors, you will need pins, you will need something to tie your dress. All these dresses that I make are always adjustable in the back, so they fit numerous people. So some kind of sturdy rope or ribbon or like a lace trim, something that's sturdy to where, you know, because it's a lot of fabric. So something sturdy where if you tie it, it's going to stay tied. You will need a sewing machine to follow along how I'm doing it, but you absolutely can do this without a sewing machine. Like, it's so simple. It will obviously take you a lot longer, but this is so simple, and there's not any kind of like fancy stitching involved, that you can do this with a needle and thread. Again, it's gonna take you a long time, but you absolutely can. All right, and the only thing that you're gonna need that's kind of like, I guess, like your personal touches is you will need like, so the first white dress that we made, I added some like tassels to the sleeves. I know I've seen some where people add, you know, some kind of trim all the way around the edges, so there's no like just an edge, it's everything has decoration. So that's kind of where, like, after you, and you can do all that after you make the dress. So once you've made the dress and you're looking at it, you can always go and like pick up some like tassels or fringe or some kind of like finishing something. But again, that's, you can make the dress first and then add all that later. Let's go. Are you ready? Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is remove a yard of fabric from the 6 yards. So you have 5 yards and 1 yard. Then the next thing that we're going to do, you're going to take the 5 yards that's left and fold that in half to create 2 pieces that are 2.5 yards each. One piece will be for the front of the skirt and the other for the back of the skirt. All right, the next step then is to take that 1 yard that you took for the sleeves and you're going to cut that in half also, but you are going to cut it opposite of the way we've been cutting things. Okay, so this is the moment where you need to decide your waist size, the size you want your waist to be. So this is going to be an adjustable dress, so you need to choose the size of your dress at its largest. So my kind of magic number that fits a lot of people, adjusts small and then gets bigger, is 44-inch waist, which means 22 inches on each side, if that makes sense. So, but a 44-inch waist, and this can get adjusted to be a lot smaller, but like max 44 inches. So let me show you first how I mark that. So we have our fabric laid out, and these are those 2 pieces still. So this is the 2.5 yards long by 2.5 yards long that we had cut in half. So I folded it in half to find the middle, and then I just stuck a safety pin. So I have found the middle, very, very middle of both of these pieces. So then, since I am going to do a 44-inch waist, I need to measure 22 inches, which will be 11 inches on each side. And even if you are bad at math like me, you know that 11 and 11 is 22, 22 and 22 is 44. So the circumference of this waist will be 44. Okay, so this right here is the middle. We are going to measure 11 inches on either side. And you can do this with regular like pins, but I really hate stabbing myself, and I feel like safety pins just are like way better if you have them. So, okay, let me make sure that's lined up. And all this is lined up nicely. I'm gonna go 11, pull it down a little bit. There's 11 there, and here is 11 on this side. I don't think you can see that, but hold please. Okay, so we have our center one there. You can hardly see it. Center one there at 11, and then one there, and then one here at 22, and that's going to be our waist. We have marked out our waist. I like to take this time, so after we've cut everything, I don't like to sew until like I have to sew. So you definitely have some decisions to make when it comes to kind of figuring out where your sleeves are going to go. So I know a lot of these dresses are very low cut, but so you can just attach them to the waist and leave it completely open, or you can sew it up a little bit and then it kind of opens to go around the shoulders. Let me kind of show you what I mean. This dress here is that one that we made a couple months ago. It was my very first video that I made about dresses. But this one, see, let me see if I can show you. So the waist is here. This is the waistline, and then it's sewn up here, and then the sleeves kind of like depart. As opposed to the blue one that we did, the waist is here and they just come straight out. So it's not sewn like this, if that makes sense. Like it could have been sewn up a little, allows for more cleavage. It's kind of your choice at this moment right here, what you want to do. Because if you are going to sew up a little bit, like sew up the cleavage just a little bit, you have to do that first. And I am going to do that a little bit on this, just even if it's like an inch or two. I don't want that full triangle. So I've lined up the very center of this, because this is going to be the very like middle front of the skirt. So this is where we're going to kind of stitch up a little bit. So leave yourself a seam allowance, obviously, and then we're gonna sew up about 2 inches. Sorry about the air conditioning noise, it's just like really hot in here. Okay, so that is where I'm gonna sew up to. Probably go a little bit past that pin, but that's gonna be like the cleavage, I guess. That's how we're gonna say that. So when you open it up, it's gonna look weird at first, but see, so it'll end up being like that. See what I'm saying? So it'll be like that, and then it'll kind of like bow out. Obviously when it's sewn it'll do it nicer than that. But yeah, so that will be like that little cleavage section, the cleavage blocker at the top of the dress. Okay, so that's really all we had to do for the sleeves right now, is that little figuring out how much cleavage you do want or don't want. Now we're gonna sew up the skirt. We're going to take the 2 pieces that we have lined up and we're gonna sew the edges. So essentially, so my fabric, I'm sitting here trying to figure out if like one side of the fabric is different than the other side. It's really not. So I'm not like too concerned. Maybe one side is a little more white. I really don't know. I think my fabric on both sides is the same. But you would obviously want to put the nicer outer facing fabric in towards each other for this. But we're going to sew up the edges. So we're going to sew from, so like I had the little safety pin in the middle and then the big ones on the outside. We're going to sew up from here, from the big safety pin, all the way down the edge, just this top part. And essentially that's going to turn into like the side of our skirt. So we're going to do it on this side and we're going to do it on that side, and that's actually going to make our skirt, and then it's just going to leave the waist open. Okay, so now I'm going to try to show you what we did. So it's sewn up on the edges over here. Can you see that? It's sewn up right here, and here is our waist. So it's all sewn up here and sewn up all the way on that side, and here is our waist. 44 inches. We did the math right. So now we need to attach our, like the front of our dress, like sleeves situation. So what I did, I took out that center safety pin and I just made like a little mark. And then that's where the center is going, like the very center of the thing, of the bust thingamajigger. So obviously we're not going to sew it like this. We have to flip it over. Okay, see, like this. So we've turned it over. I'm like sitting on the outside of the dress. And it's going to line up there. So we're going to make sure that little seam is lined up perfectly on our little mark. And this is just that front part of the skirt. Okay, and I'm going to pin this all the way across to the edge here, the edge of the waist. Okay, I'm going to pin it and then I'm going to show you. Okay, we are all pinned up. All the way to the edge, all the way over. Just the only tip I have, if you do decide to do like a little, like, what do we call it, a cleavage blocker, just make sure you sew it flat. Like, don't let the seam go one way or the other. Make sure you have that flat, so pin that down also. But then it's pinned all the way over here, and obviously there's extra of the sleeve, like you're only pinning it to the front of the waist. You have this extra this over here, and just leave that because that's going to actually be the flowy part of the sleeve, and we will address that later. Alright, so I am going to sew this up, and I'm actually going to sew it twice, and I'll show you why and how to do that in just a sec. Okay, let me see if I can show you what I did. So I did my original stitch, like the one that like closes this off. See? So that's the one that like closed it off. But then I did another like zigzag stitch behind it. Ooh, focus. I did another zigzag stitch behind it because my fabric is kind of fraying a little bit. So I didn't want it to end up fraying. I wanted there to be like a zigzag stitch in the way of the actual seam stitch, just in case it starts to fray a little bit more. And you know, I'd rather do it now than have to like come back and fix fraying later. So yeah, I did stitch this twice. One good seam stitch and then a zigzag just to kind of combat the fraying. If you're not doing a dress that are using fabric that has anything that will fray, then see what I mean, like the fraying, it's already kind of starting to fray. See? Oh, can you see that? Yeah. If you're not using any fabric that will fray, then you kind of don't have to worry about that stuff if you don't want to, but again, it's a seam that is front and center, so choose wisely. Okay, so I've pinned this, like just kind of clamped it onto a hanger so you can see. So here is the front of our dress. And here's our waist. I think we sewn it pretty close. I actually kind of like that pattern right there. But yeah, that's where we're at. Next, we are going to connect the rest of the sleeves. Okay, the next thing that we want to do before we attach the sleeve is make sure that the sleeves are the same size. Otherwise, you're going to end up with one sleeve longer than the other. So how I do this is I measure from that seam right there, so it'll be right underneath the bust, and I measure all the way up. And the magic number for sleeves I'm finding is 35. So I did measure, this one's about 36 and a half and the other one's about 35 and a half, so one sleeve was longer than the other. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to make both sleeves exactly the same size. Okay, so now we are going to close up the sleeves, and it's actually way easier than people seem to think that it is. But all you're going to do, hold on, trying to get where I can be, is lay your, so we have our sleeves laid up flat. Okay, here's the inside seam. They're laid up flat, they're measured, they're both 35 inches from the seam to the top. You're going to grab your top there and you're going to bring it down and you're going to bring it to the back side of the skirt. Okay? So there's lots of ways to do this. This is how I do it. Some people like the sleeves to be even, so they sew them closer to the back, but this is how I do it. I attach this sleeve to the right at the corner edge of the back side of the skirt. So, I'm trying to see how to show you. Okay. Okay. See? So we have our sleeve edge here and this. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip it and pin it. Right there. Crazy, I know. So we're going to sew this right here. Like an inch. So really, maybe an inch and a half. We're just going to go with this because I have this nice pattern on here. We're going to do this. So I'm going to pin that so that when you flip it, it goes like this. So then both sleeves are attached right at the edge. And I am going to try and, so you're going to end up with this kind of like hole right here. You are going to want to grab everything at one point and sew it kind of up. I don't know, it's really going to depend on your fabric, but I am going to do 2 stitches just like I did the front. I'm going to do 1 stitch, like that's the pretty stitch that you can see, and then I'm going to do another zigzag just to avoid the fraying. So, understood? I feel like that's the only way to show you how to do this. But yeah, and then your sleeves will look like that. Okay, so this is where we are. We're attached. I actually ended up, I think, going in about 2 inches. 2.5 maybe, but again, it's not like a huge deal. So it was important to I mean, the armpits always look kind of a mess, but I don't know, it's nothing you see. So it's kind of important when you fold these over to give yourself some allowance, because what's going to happen next is this is going to get folded down and sewn, and that's actually what's going to have the drawstring in it. So, I mean, I'm going to show you what we're going to do, but it's important that when you sew the sleeve on, you fold it down here. I don't know, I'm trying to like show you the best way. See, I folded it and sewed it here. Actually sewed it like 3 times because I really wanted to make sure it was solid, but I've given myself enough to like 1.5 inches of fold over, which I actually think it's kind of cute too, how the pattern here like ends. And this is what's going to get folded over for that drawstring. Okay, so this is the string that I bought to be the ties. There you go. It doesn't match perfectly, but I was having a really hard time matching this pink, but I think it'll be fine. It's just the back. So let me show you how we're going to attach that. Okay, so remember the back, this is that back piece of the dress where the back of the sleeve is connected, and then remember how we made this little lip right here, and this is what we're going to fold down in the back. See, so there's this little lip, and we're going to fold down, and that's inside there is going to be the like string. So all we're going to do is tuck the string in here towards the top, kind of, I guess, towards the middle, and we're going to sew that down. So I'm going to stitch it right here and sew it down so it's connected first, and then I'm going to fold this down and connect it. I'm going to fold this down right here and connect it all the way up into like the middle here, and then I'll show you what to do. Okay, so I have those sewn on. They're sewn on inside there, and this is how it's gonna look when it's done. That's gonna end up getting folded in, but the next step we have to do is we have to make a hole for the strings to kind of pull through. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna find this center. There's the center, and you're going to cut. You're gonna cut down about double your seam. So since we're folding this piece in, we're going to cut down almost that far on this side. So let me show you. Okay, so that when we fold it in, we have a hole there. See what I mean? So the thing is with this is, if you have a fabric that doesn't fray, you can just leave it like that, and now you can go in and tuck your strings and sew, no big deal. But I have a fabric that kind of frays, and I think too with the string like rubbing on it to tie, it's going to fray more. So I'm going to go and onto the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch up both sides here and then a little bit right here, so that when I fold it, it's like stitched right here and closed to avoid right here and closed, and to avoid the fraying. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to stitch this, and then I'm going to close it, and then I'll show you the finished product. See, and there you have it. It's all stitched up. Our strings have a place to come out. And let me tie it, and I'll show you what it looks like. There you go. Okay, so at this point we are pretty much done. Like, that is the dress. So at this point you would add whatever like details and stuff you wanted, and so I did buy some stuff to embellish it a little bit, and let me put that on and I will show you the finished product.